Hello everyone. So welcome to our first GDG meetup after COVID, and this is my first in-person talk, so bear with me. A little bit nervous. So today I will talk about what's new in Android 13 and the tools and IDE improvements in general for Android Studio. So Lawrence already introduced a little bit, but I will again introduce myself. My name is Singh. I'm working at a Manulife as a mobile software engineer, Google developer expert for Android, and mentor at Udacity for Android Kotlin Nano Degree, and writing technical articles about Android and Kotlin in general.
So you can follow him and subscribe to this article.
So these are the two topics we're going to cover today, Android 13 and then the Android Studio. So before deep dive into Android 13, if you know, like probably a couple of months ago, we got the Android 12. And if you are an Android developer, you might have hard time to migrate from Android 10 or 11 to 12 because there are a couple of challenges. For example, adding export flag to all the activities or services in your manifest file. But with the Android 13, the changes are not really that hard to support or targeting the SDK 13 in Android applications. And currently it's in platform stability, so probably by the end of August we will have a stable release of Android 13 and we can start targeting that. So the first one, we will talk about the behavioral changes that it brings to the Android world. So there is the first new notification permission for Android. So this is basically improving the user experience. So if you know, first we, like as a developer, we have control whenever we want, we just send the notification to the user, and then user at the end get the chance to go to the app settings and then turn off the notifications. But now it's like vice versa, or it's like reversed order. So if we want to send a notification to the device or to the end user's device, then in that case, we first need to make sure that our application is having a notification permission and it's a runtime permission. So if you need to make sure that you are following the best practices, how we deal with the runtime permissions in Android. The second one is the exact alarm permission. And if you are already familiar with Android 12, it also has the permission related to the alarm functionality, but this one is specific for Android 13, and I will explain later how it affects the existing permission and how we're gonna use this one. The third one is granular media permissions. So if before we just ask for one permission, which is like read external storage and write external storage. But now in Android team, they provided a different permissions for all these based on the category. Like if your application just wants to access the user's media, for example, just images or photos, then there is a only specific permission for that. And if your application is having some sort of functionality which depends on the audio files access, then there is a specific permission for the Android about the audio. And the fourth one is about the nearby Wi-Fi devices, and this is improvement from the privacy point of view, because if you are familiar with how Wi-Fi devices permission works before, like we access the Wi-Fi functionality using the location permission. So for the end user, it might be just the Wi-Fi access, but as a developers, we can like use that permission to access the location data from the users and user's device. So they revised that behavior, and now we are having a specific permission for just for Wi-Fi. So in Android 13, we cannot access the location when we try to access the Wi-Fi related functionality in our application. It's same like the Bluetooth permission that was added back in Android 12, but it's like now again, it's basically improving the privacy for the end user. So next one is the foreground service task manager. So with the notification drawer, there is a new component that is added for the end user to provide the more visibility, like which applications are currently running foreground services there. And from there, user can have a full control on those services. Like they can stop your application from there, and when they tap on that stop button from that task manager, it will kill all the processes of your application. The next one is intent filters. So you might already see some sort of functionalities. Like recently I got a chance to work with the map intent, and I saw that when I launch the intent, the Zoom application shows up for handling that intent. So even that Zoom application is don't do anything with the functionality related to maps. So handling those kind of things, now intents, whenever any application launch any intent, if the intent filters get matched with the target application, only that particular application gonna handle that intent. Otherwise, it will not work. The last one is the clipboard sensitive data protection. So in this case, they added the new flag that we can pass with the intent. So if you are working with the financial apps, for example, bank applications, and in that case, if your user is copy some data from your application, there is an option now to actually protect that data, so that when that data shows up in the clipboard, it will not actually shows up as in the raw form, and it will be like a password, like protected field, so that we cannot able to see that. But there is an option like you need to provide you need to follow extra steps to actually see that data. So those are the behavioral changes, and these are the couple of the new features that are introduced in Android 13. The first one is the per app language preferences. So if your application is multi-language support, then there is a new implementation added in the Android X app compat activity, and also at the platform level, so that it's also backward compatible. So we can provide the preferences to the user that they can change their application language rather than changing the system level language for the Android device. The second one is the photo picker, and if you remember in the behavioral changes, we talk about the permissions. So photo picker is basically a standard tool added in the Android 13, and it's only available for Android 13, but probably I saw the documentation, they are talking about adding it to up to Android 11. So if your application is just accessing the media related to images and videos, you can use this tool, and as a developers, we don't need to care about any permissions, and it will work without any sort of handling permission related work. The next one is the predictive back gesture. So if you are already familiar with, or you are playing with Android devices, you might have seen, like when you use the gestures in your applications, you are not sure like actually where you are going backwards, right? Like for example, if you are in web view, it should land you back to the previous page, but sometimes it just kill your application. So predictive back gesture, it provides the review when you provide, like when you perform the back gesture on your phone, it will provide you the preview, like where you are actually going backwards. So you actually have the control at that point, like whether you want to go backwards or not at that point. And it can be implemented with the, I will explain in the later slides how we can support this behavior. And also it's a backward compatible, so it's not just for Android 13. And the next one is clipboard preview, and it's the standard UI component which is added in Android 13. And whenever you now do the whenever you do the copy paste related function operations in your applications, you get the option to actually access the clipboard and modify that copy text or the whatever content you have copied. You can preview that content and edit that content from this new UI. And the last, Bluetooth, there is a support for Bluetooth LE audio. I haven't gone through the depth, like what is LE audio. It's like a low energy Bluetooth devices, and it helps to provide better audio quality. And then there is a support for MIDI 2.0. So now there is a support for connecting MIDI 2.0 via the USB for the Android devices. And the hyphenation is back. It's backed in Android 13, and it's more faster than the previous versions. Like since Android 10, it was set default to the none, but now it was back to the normal mode, and you can set the hyphenation based on your requirements, because certain languages that required like a normal hyphenation, or there are a couple of options that you can check in the documentation, but it's there is a best like a better performance now enabled in the Android 13. Yep.
How is the faster hibernation implemented? What do you use?
No, it's basically they provide, it's at the platform level. So as a developers, we just enable it, and they back it by some studies. Like it in the documentations, they just added like it's a faster by 200% than the previous versions. So just believe on the Android documentation at this point.
But it's across languages. Where do you get the database of entities? Are you using Solr? How are you extracting the woods for those hibernation?
No, it's basically for the UI. Like when you add for example text on your user like for text views, right? And in that case, like when we set some sort of constraints, like at the end, like margins and that kind of stuff, in those scenarios, how it handles, like the system how handles the hyphenation. This is basically about that one. So this is how permissions look like, these new permissions, specific permissions for like, the first one is about the notifications. Second one is like at the top, it was about the specific for audio. Then this one is for the photos or images, and then the last one is for the Wi-Fi. So how does that work is like basically the notification permission, it doesn't matter if you are targeting Android 13 or not. Whenever you're like, if your application is running on Android 13, this will impact your application, and you need to handle the scenarios by checking if your application is enabled to it must check before actually sending the notifications. So when you are targeting 13, you have full control, like where you want to ask for the permission, you can ask at any time. Like for example, if there is any specific feature that you want to show the notification, like a permission at that certain point in the process. But if you are targeting Android 12, whenever you create a first notification channel in your application, at that point the system will trigger the notification permission automatically, and from there you can proceed like if it's allowed or not. And then there is a method like can send permissions in the framework that you can use to make sure that you still have access to sending the permissions to your application. And the rest, the notification I have. So the media, image, audio, and video, these three are same. Their functionality is same, but they now are more granular. Like they are just specific for their categories. Like you can only access images, audios, and videos, and write external storage. It will not work anymore because they have new permission called manage external storage, and it was there I guess since Android 12. So now we only need read permissions, and based on that, you can perform your stuff. And even for example, if it's just about the images and videos, you can just use the photo picker that I explained previously. Like in that case, we don't need any sort of permissions, and we can access that. For the use exact alarm, this permission is it's a kind of a dangerous permission because they have defined certain rules about this permission. Like we cannot use it as a directly in our applications. If your application is not specific for reminders or timer related application, you cannot use this permission in your applications. And for those scenarios, there is already permission added in Android 12, which is for scheduling alarms, and you can use that one. But if you are targeting 13 and you are using this permission and your application is not in that category, Play Store might remove your application. So you need to be careful when you are using the exact alarm permission. And if you really want to use this permission, then and also you are using the previous permission, which is scheduling exact alarms, in that case you can define the max SDK version for the previous permission, which is like Android 32, I guess the 12. So you just need you need to make sure that you are like using the right permissions at right time. Then there is a new functionality-wise improvements for the developer downgradable permissions. So now we as a developers have control over permissions, like we have access to which permissions our application have, and if we are not using those permissions, we can revoke ourselves. So for example, my application is having the read external storage, but we are not using at all that permission. Then I can use these two methods, which is like first one is for single permission, and then the second one is for multiple permissions. And you can invoke this to like remove the permission access for your application. And this is basically happens when the system will define when it feels that your application is in background for enough time, it will automatically kill the process. But to revoke the permissions, your application will be go through the process death, and then from there on, the next time when your application gets launched, it will be in effect. So we have like a control on permissions, like whatever access our application is accessing. Then there is a new privacy feature again for, if you remember Android 12, we have exported flag for activities and services in our Android manifest file. But now even for the context register receivers, if you are targeting Android 13, you have options to provide a exported flag. So if your application is just using receiver for their own purpose and they don't want to expose it to the outside, you can define any flag, like one of those flags, receiver exported and not exported, with your when you are registering your receiver. And to test this functionality, there is in the emulator settings or in the device, when you have Android 13 on your device, you can turn on the option called dynamic receiver explicit export required. So whenever this feature is on, you will get the warnings or the errors when you try to register the receiver without providing the exported flag. Currently, right now, Android Studio doesn't show any kind of lint errors, or even it just built it, but I guess probably in the next updates we might have some sort of lint warnings whenever we are providing or registering the receiver without providing the exported flag. So this is the photo picker tool. So there are a couple of options that we can play with. So that's the action that you need to provide with your intent, which is called action pick images. And by default, it supports both kind of media, which is like images and videos, and user can select whatever they want. There is a default limit to 1, so user can only select one particular image or video at a given time. Then there is a extra, if you want to provide if you want to support a multiple selection, for example, user can select multiple images, then you can add the intent extra with your intent, if you see the example here. So in that you can provide the maximum limit that you want to support, but that needs to be respected with the platform level. So if, for example, if you want to support 100 images, it might not be possible for the given device. So there is a method called get pick images max limit. So you get the access to that limit, and then from that you can create your intent, providing the limit that is respecting the limit provided by the platform. And it's not just always like images or videos. Like if you just want to select you want to give the option to the end user just select the images, you can define the type on your intent, which can be images or videos. And also there is a UI difference. So by default the limit is 1. So when the limit is 1, the bottom, this is like how the UI look like. So the bottom sheet dialog it opens in half mode when the user can only select one image. But if you provide the option for more than one images, it will be open in full mode, and user can select multiple images there. And this is the clipboard enhancement for the non-sensitive text and the sensitive content. For example, on the non-sensitive part, you can actually see the text, like whatever you have copied, which is in this case I have sample for, I just copy me text and it shows me that raw text. But on the sensitive content, it just, this is from the Pixel 4a, so it shows me like tab to view, and then you can only see the content. So this is kind of a sensitive. If you want, if you have that kind of a features that you don't want to expose the content, you need to actually, when you want to clip the data, you need to set the description and provide the extra, which is called clip description extra is sensitive, and pass the boolean value to true. And this is this particular constant value is only available for Android 13. And if you are not targeting 13, you can provide the raw value of this constant, which is I have commented in the last line, and just set it to true, and system will handle that for you. So this is the improvement for intent filters. Now intent will be delivered only if they matches the intent filter criteria. So if you have any application that can handle the send action and MIME type for say plain text, if you have defined those intent filters and any other application wants to trigger the intent with the send action, they must need to verify the intent filters that are supported by the any given application or any activity. And if it doesn't match, system will show the UI error, like why like it's unable to find that particular activity. And there are certain limitations for this one. Like if you are launching an intent and the target application is not targeting 13, in that case it will work. But if in the future, if that application started targeting 13 and you are not targeting 13, in that case it will not work, and you need to actually provide the support for these intent filters. Like you just need to make sure you are launching the intent with the respected filters. So this is the sample. For example, I have one application where I have defined any application. For example, the activity, it can handles the intent with the action send and MIME type plain text. And when I need to launch that, I need to make sure, if you see here, I need to make sure that I have defined the intent filter as same as I have in that activity. Otherwise, it will not work. And if that fails, this is the error that will be shown in the form of dialog by the system. It's the system level error that it will not able to find the activity that can handle that given intent. So the next one is the language, per app language system setting. So I'm not sure, but I think for now we don't have any option for like go to the settings and we can select a language for any given application. For it's like we can change the language, but it's at the system level. So if I want to set a French, it will be a system level. So this is the improvement for that case. So for example, I'm learning French. I can just set the couple of my application in French if they are supporting the French language. So supporting the French language or providing the systems like to the, this is basically how we can provide the information to the system that we are supporting the multiple languages. So you need to define the XML file, and in that file you define your local config, and you provide the languages that you are supporting. For example, here I'm supporting French and English. And then in the application tag in your manifest file, we add the tag called local config, and we provide the reference to that file. And after adding this function, like these files and this configuration and that flag, when user go to the system settings, there is a new UI component added where user can change the language for that particular application. So this is the flow if user wants to change the language for any given application, like just for single application. So in systems, we go to the language and inputs, then this is the new feature called app languages. And when you go to this page, it will take a little time to actually analyze what are the applications that are supporting their language level feature at a language app level. And from there, we can change the language just for that specific application. So that was like how we are informing the system that we are supporting the multiple languages. And sometimes we don't, like our users don't want to go to the system settings, right? We provide some sort of functionality within the application that our user can change the language, for example, from the drawer or just from the menu. If you want to support that kind of behavior, then there is a new API called it's basically added in the app compat, so it's backward compatible, and these are the couple of methods that you need to take care when you want to support the per app languages features. So first of all is like you provide some sort of dialog, and where users select the language, then we call this method for language tags. It gives back us the language. So for example, this select locale, for example, say French, and we have the tag for French language, then we get the access to that language. Then we call the set application locales, and we provide the locales that we get from that first method. And then the last one is this method is basically, these are the same, but if you want to set the default language, which is like your system language, you just pass the empty list of the locale list, and it's from the API. It's not the custom method. If you see local list compat.get empty locale list, this is from the API. And the last method is for getting the application locales, like you get the list of the application locales that your application is supporting. And there is also a platform API, but this is the sample of app compat library if you want to provide the backward compatibility for older versions. But if you just want to support like Android 13 or higher, you can go with the platform API too. So predictive back gesture. So if you are not customizing the back button behavior in your applications or back gesture in your application, then there is not much work to support this new feature. We just need to set the flag, which is called enable on back invoked callback, and in the manifest to set it to true, and then you can test the animations, like how it look like in the emulator with the Android image 13 or higher. And under the developer options, you need to enable the developer options, then turn on the predictive back animations. But it's not stable yet, it's not properly working, but in upcoming updates it might gonna be work as expected, but it's already there. And there is a detailed I have added the reference to the documentation where you can see how you're gonna support the back gesture when you have a custom navigation in your application. For example, you have bottom nav and you are playing with the back stack and back navigation. In that case, in those scenarios, it might be another talk with the full details how we can support different scenarios. But this is the very basic scenario where we are not overriding or we are not customizing our back functionality. Then it's just one flag and we are good to go. No, this flag is for the application, like in the code. This is just informing the system that you are supporting the back gesture. But for testing that or how actually that animation look like, you need to go to the developer options in your device and turn on that setting. But they are totally different. One is for testing and one is for actually informing the system that I'm going to support the back gesture in my app. So this is the new UI component which is added in the Android 13, which is foreground service task manager. So you might have seen some applications, they are keep running foreground services, and we are not able to disable those notifications or swipe those notifications. But with this new feature, actually the end user, they have a full control over the foreground services. If they want to stop any of the services, there is a small component if you see at the bottom. And when we tap on that, it will open the dialog, which is providing the full information, how many services are there, which application is running that service. In my case, I have added the sample application. So we have the stop option there, and whenever user wants, they can stop that service. And it just doesn't stop only the service, it will kill the application if there is any process is working for that given application. And this is UX improvements. Now with the media playback state, they have derived a lot of information in the notifications, like when we see the information related to the media, like if you see, like there are a lot of controls, and even where it's currently playing, we have the option to actually change the device. For example, if my phone, if you want to pair new device, you just tap on that icon at the corner and it will open this window, and you can see all the information here, and you can just tap on pair new device, and from there you can move. Should I move? And if you are familiar with the last year announcements, there is a material view, and you know there is a lot of options for the developers as well as for the users that we can support for the dynamic colors. Now they are moving step forward in that direction, is like now they have supported for themed icons, and when we need to turn on that feature, like as a end users, if we turn on that feature from the settings, for example, when you go to the wallpaper and styles, there is a new option. Currently it's in beta, but if you turn it on, you will get the themed icons for your applications. And for the developers, there is a work to support the icons, that you need to provide the monochromatic icon for your applications, or if you don't want to support it, you can just defer it, but at some point you might need to provide, because it improves the end user experience overall. So this is another improvement in terms of how the design and look and feel of the device for the end user. So that's about all Android 13. Now these are the couple of improvements in the Android Studio. There is accessibility scanner, which is integrated in the Android Studio. So if you are working as a developer, you use at some point, I'm not sure if you guys really checking for the like the accessibility issues in your applications, for example, color contrast issues, or like if there is a proper content description is provided for all the UI components, like the images and the decorative components. So providing the support, like now we have the support for testing those features built in the IDE, so we don't need to use the tools. For example, there is a external tool provided by the Google, which is called Accessibility Scanner. So this feature, it basically brings that tool, it's in the IDE. So during the development, we see, right, like in the IDE, like if there is any issues related to the IDE, if there is any content description missing, if there is any clickable action is not having the min and max respected height or width, which is 48 dips. And then there is a ADB over Wi-Fi. So we already as a developers, we have a lot of issues when we need to connect our devices using the cables. So now they have supported the debugging over Wi-Fi, and it works like pretty well. Like sometimes you need to connect after every time, but I guess with the electric eel they improved it. So when you connected it once, the studio, it will try to remember the configuration and the device. So next time it will try to automatically connect to that device. Then there is animation preview, interactive previews for the animations. For if you are familiar with the Compose, it's the new UI toolkit. So for that, for animations are also supported in the previews. So we can actually see your previews in the preview section, and we can actually particularly go by frame and see how our animation is behaving in its lifetime. Then there are a couple of improvements in the device manager. We can see all the devices, connected devices, running devices. Then the network inspector, it's separated from the profilers. Now it goes under the app inspection. And these are the 4 features that are introduced in the electric eel, which is in Canary or dev. It's in the dev channel right now. So we have the LiveEdit support. So if you are using Compose, you don't need to rebuild your project to see the changes in your device. So if your application is running on the device, you can. This is currently supporting the composables, and probably in future it might be improved to support more features. But now if you are changing your Compose for example, colors or button size or whatever component, it will immediately show these changes in the device. It's basically same like a Flutter's feature called hot reload. So it's similar to that one. Second one is the device mirroring. So as Android developers, you might know that you are familiar with the tools like SCR, CPY, or Visor when we want to cast our Android devices to our systems. But now with this feature, we can see the running devices, like the external devices within the Android Studio. So we don't need any external tools for that one. The next one is the layout validation. Sorry, there is a typo. So layout validation is how it works is like you have your given layout, and when you go to that tab, it will show you how your UI gonna look like on different form factors, for example, desktop, tablets, and it will show you the hints like where you can improve your layouts. So for example, if you are just using the bottom nav and you are using having the layout validation tab open, it will show you the hints like what you can use to provide the better experience to the end user in case of the different form factors. And the last one is the visual linting. They are both interchangeable. Visual linting is for same for the layout. They are quite interchangeably used. Validation is also with that one, but visual linting is basically providing that information like what you can use instead of what you are using in your layout. So if you are using bottom nav, you can use the navigation rail view in your devices where you have form factor like a desktop or any other like tablets. So let me turn to the device. I have time. We have time. Okay. So I will just demo the electric eel features here, but you can play with the different versions. Like there are 3 stages or the 3 options for the Android Studio that we can use. For example, the stable version, then there is a canary, and then there is a dove. See that one? Where is it? Where is Okay, so it's there. I need to go here. Okay, it's there. Okay, it's here. It's really gonna hard to. So there is a new feature called, there is a small tooltip that is gonna shown when the build is done, and it provides, like it's just the visual notification to the developers like, hey, there is a chance to improve your build process. For example, you see that this is the new tooltip introduced in Electric Eel. So for this project, I intentionally added the flag in my Gradle properties to support the Jettifier. So if I go to the settings, in the for example, so I go to build analyzer, I go to all warnings. So if you see here, these are the 2 options. Like I can enable the configuration cache, which improves the build time, and then there is a automatic check for us for Jettifier, which is like basically we are enabling the Jettifier if we are using any kind of library which is providing support for the older libraries from the support version. And Jettifier, this check will automatically perform the check for us, even for checking the third-party libraries that we are using. And if there is nothing used for the support libraries, it will automatically remove this flag from the Gradle properties for us. And what next? I can see device. So this is the new feature called device running. So this is the device I have connected with my my laptop, and I can simply perform any actions on this one. It's really hard for me actually at the moment, but we can see all the devices here, even the virtual devices, and if you have any external devices. Then there is a new emulator which is added in the electric eel, which is resizable. So you don't need to actually to test the different form factors. You don't need to actually switch between the different versions of emulators, or you don't need to create a different versions. There is just this icon next to the screenshot option, and there is an option to switch to tablet, desktop, or unfoldable. And it will take a little time, but it opens the device in that mode. Okay. And then there is a layout. Oops.
Quick question.
Yep.
Can you still open the emulator in a separate window? Like that way?
Before?
Yeah.
Yeah. There is an option in the settings. By default, I guess it's on, that you can turn on, and you can just drag your ID, like the emulator, from your Android Studio.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not like a final that you can only show, like use your emulator within the IDE. Like we have full control on that. Like if you are comfortable with the older version of the Android Studio where they don't support the integrated emulators, you can change that in settings. And for the device mirroring, it's not by default on. So if you are, for example, install the electric eel, you need to go to the Android Studio settings, and then there is a option called experimental features that you need to turn on to make it work. So you go here, experimental features, and then you see I turned on the enable mirroring of physical devices.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So let me. Okay. And if you are using the compose, there is a major improvement that comes with the electric eel is, I don't think if you are able to see, but there is a second last option which says show recomposition counts. So you can see how many times your composable gets recomposed during its lifetime. Before there is no option, and we use some sort of kind of logs or third-party options like Google Play team. They have added the recompose highlighter. I just copy that code here, but we don't need that anymore because now it's integrated with the IDE. So whenever you run your application, you just turn on, like go to the layout inspector and just make sure you turn on the recomposition counts, and next to the each component you will see the count in numbers, like how many times your particular given composable gets recomposed. Yeah, it's for Android team, right? And another one is the annotation support for the previews. So if we have like multiple composables, we might end up with writing multiple previews for, like for example, to see how our UI look like when it's in night mode, or how it look like when it's in day mode, whatever, like different configurations. But now we can just combine them in a single class, like with single annotation. So I have two previews here, like I have defined with, like one is with night mode and one is without night mode, and then I define the annotation called preview device, and we can easily use this. So this is the sample compose I have created. So now I don't need to write two different previews for my given compose. I just use that annotation called preview device, and whatever the annotations I have defined for that annotation, it will automatically preview for me.
It's a custom preview device. Preview device is a custom annotation you created yourself?
No. It's from the. Yeah, we just need to create the annotation, and it will handle for us the internal work, and it just.
Like, if you can show
Yeah.
do the bulk preview anytime you use that specific annotation. So if you want to test font size and add a preview for that, so you can see what you want.
So yeah, this is the code you're showing me, is this from the SDK or that's your code, the preview device annotation?
Yeah, this is my code.
Yeah, that's what I meant. You define.
Yeah, I just defined, yeah.
Okay, that's what I meant. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Like you just define your annotation, yeah. And next thing is, it's really hard to actually moving through, but I will try my best. Oops, no, C++. So there is a new new I can say platform introduced at the Google I/O, which is called Play Store Index. I guess that's the correct name. So what it do is it provides the collection of the SDKs, like the third-party SDKs, and it provides the information about those SDKs. For example, if you want to integrate any sort of messaging and you want to check like which SDK is good for you, for example, Stream or any other SDK, you can go to that site and you can track, like check like they have sorted based on their ratings and how many companies or already clients they are like using that given SDK. For example, if you see my comment which says Google Play SDK, yeah, its name is Google Play SDK Index, so you can just Google and check how it works. So here I have added the older version for the Firebase auth, and within the IDE I see the information about that. So this information, like the first one is basically from the Gradle, like this version is outdated, but this information is fetched from that SDK index, Google Play SDK Index, and it provides you the information that the version we are using, it's outdated, it's not maintained by the authors, and we can change to whichever version we want. So this is the new feature, and it's integrated with the IDE that we make sure that we are using the right versions, and whatever the third-party libraries we are using are actually well known for the Android community. Okay, and the next one is, do you see anywhere LogCat? No. I think I need to run application. So they revamped the LogCat, and now it's more colorful, and then there is a more options that for like if for the search it supports the query system, that how we can actually search our stuff in the within the LogCat. And I'm trying to actually launch that, but I'm not able to see where is my LogCat. So this is some sort of example of I can quickly show you how this recomposition works. Yeah, in this case I don't have any state-based composition, so it will not show me that one, but if you are, whenever you are interacting with your application, layout inspector will show you the full details. And the next feature is app quality insights. So if you are using the Firebase Crashlytics in your applications, I don't have set up for that one, but in your code base, if there is any crash happens, for example, let's say I'm in second fragment and I'm doing some stuff here like accessing Firebase, or my code is having a lot of crashes or issues in the crash analytics at the Firebase. So within the ID, it shows you it will highlight, like for example, underline the particular given code, and when you highlight or when you hover over that given code, it will provide the Firebase information within the ID, like this code is causing these many crashes, and you can directly actually launch the report from within the ID, and it will launch the Firebase interface, and you can actually track the detailed information there. But it's really cool if you're using Firebase for Crashlytics. What next? Yeah, I guess we are over time, but there are various other options, like there is a new options for run configuration. If you are building for variables, there is a new option to create a run configuration specific to the variables. Here, if you say here variables, tiles, watch face, these are the new options that we can easily create configurations for those. And yeah, there are a lot of other features. I will share the slides because I am already over time. So thanks for your time, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah.